Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, continuing on with our dismantling and dismembering of the Losi Micro B, we have LMB23126B, and this is the GPM alloy battery holder and electronic receiver mounting plate for the little Micro B. So, let's bring in for a close-up look, see what we get in these, and see how it fits. Right, so as I say, this is the LMB23126B. So again, it's a blue GPM part. And again, we do get a resealable bag, which I'm a huge fan of. Better for environment and better for me not losing tiny little parts. So, definitely something that we need. We get new Velcro, and we get both sides of it. Seems though my standard part has he's no longer stuck to the body shell. That lasted about a day. So we have a really nicely machined battery tray. Looking at it, not sure which way around it goes, not sure if it's that way, but that looks really nice. So we've got that to fit. We've got us new Velcro, so thanks GPM for realising that the Losi part will fall off, and that we will need a new one to stick these on. And then we also have the radio tray that is nice and flat. It looks a lot broader, so we've got a lot more options to stick our ESC and receiver in. So yeah, hopefully we may be able to get this slightly lower down. It does look without all the plastic jank on there, it may help us drop us centre of gravity and get us body shell fitting better. But let's get this cleaned up and see how it fits. So first thing we're going to need to do is get our receiver and ESC off. But we do need to get these unplugged. That's our servo. So we'll take out the receiver. This one I've been using is the little Furitech, so we can remove that. Then we're going to need to remove our ESC. Now, as long as we're careful here, we shouldn't have to remove any of our wires. Just be careful as this peels out, you don't pull it flying and rip your sensor lead apart. So we'll get rid of as old sticky stuff. Then we're down to our actual radio tray itself. So for this, we're definitely going to need our 050 driver to start with. And we've got two tiny little screws on here, so we can undo both these. Then we've got one screw on the side that goes all the way through to our motor cover. It's one thing that I'm a little bit curious of. If I know a lot of people like to run these without the motor cover on, but if we've got nothing for this to screw into, because the motor cover is what we screw it into, then we're going to have to find a little nut, I believe, to hold that in. Because up to now, nothing that I've found comes with anything. So this goes all the way through to the motor plate. So that should allow us to remove that. So we've got that off. And to give you an idea of the sort of footprint and size comparison of these, not only is it considerably wider, but if we look at the side profile, so it does drop the height of the radio, so it should be really good at getting us centre of gravity lower. So once we've got that out, we're left with the battery tray in the middle. So if we then flip the RC over, and just be careful with all your wires, and then we're going to need the 1.5mm driver, and we've got 4 of these little screws, so we can get rid of all these. So once we get this last screw out, we should be able to flip the RC over and then remove the stock radio tray. And it's quite interesting that there is no mechanism for holding the battery in. once we swap this. Now underneath we do have 2 retaining notches, so we can line it up with them, and we do have a stop on one side, so not really sure which way they're intending this to fit. If we fit it that way, we've got the stop there. Other way, we're going to have the stop at that side, so it depends whether you actually want your lipo to not slide back and hit the motor, or let's see if it will go around the opposite way. So it looks like we could fit it the opposite way, but then your battery is going to be forced further backwards. Personally, I think you're better off forcing the battery forward than back, because you want more weight over the front. So we're just going to have to hold this in place. We've now got our 4 little screws, and if we get one of these just snugged down a little bit, should then be able to get one of the front ones in place. And again, with these screws, just be very careful. Although it is really good quality alloy, they are tiny screws, and if you go crazy with them, you're going to run the risk of either stripping a head or stripping the threads. Since these are something that you're probably not going to be taking out, I don't think there's any risk in if you want to thread lock these, because it's pretty much going to be one of the things that you're going to fit and forget. Once we've got them in, does get rid of all the mechanism and the clutter, which will give you a lot more space for wiring. Also hasn't got the edge strips, but I don't think there's much chance of a lipo flying out of here. Now if we look on the radio tray itself, this has got lugs. Looking at it, it looks like that's designed to get the battery in and keep it in. Bit of a strange design, so it looks like the idea is for this to lift this up, put the battery in place, and then fasten it down. So if you are going to be swapping battery, you've got to undo these 2 screws to get the battery up and out. I don't see any other way of getting it out, but it's not going to fly out with the RC. So we've got our longer screw. Then we're going to want to refit both our screws to hold the radio tray down. Now you do have the option of tucking the bind plug in, so you can keep that really neat. Now we need to look at the actual ESC and receiver positioning and see where we want these. The one thing you are going to have to be mindful of is you need to get to these screws to get to the battery. With the extra size of this radio tray, there are a lot of options for mounting the receiver and speed controller. One thing I'm really curious of is, depending on where we put this speed controller now, let's see if it makes a difference to how the actual body shell fits. So as motor wire, I think I'd run that battery cable underneath. That lets us bring the motor wires right in neat, and I would like the speed controller to mount in that position, but I'm just going to get a little sticky pad, stick that down, and see if it gives us plenty of options for the lid coming down. So one thing I would be aware of, just try and get your actual tape that's holding your speed control down, try and get as thinner as possible. Definitely going to make your life easier getting the lid down. So if we try some really thin servo tape on there, and then I'm just going to try and tidy up the wiring a little, and let's see how the body shell now fits, because it was pretty close. We do have the stock Velcro that's not really sticky, but let's see if this radio tray has actually made our life easier. And yeah, I can definitely tell straight away that sits down now really good. The body can easily sit all the way down onto the chassis. So yeah, this radio tray definitely huge advantage getting the centre of gravity lower. So the only drawback I can see with it is to swap these, you've got to take these two screws out to swap your battery. Now, even with wiring in to just under these, it's a little bit of a pain. But literally, that's as long as it takes, and you can just lift that up and get your battery out. The battery is definitely not going to come flying out of there any other way. And technically, I could see at least just one of these screws in would hold it. I'd have liked to see a different way of doing this, but off top of my head at the minute, kind of wondering if you could put some bigger screws in and then drill a hole through them and put a body pin through. Maybe that'd work. But yeah, if anybody can think or has come up with a better way of fastening these down, please leave a comment below. Open to any suggestions. We do have a lot of space now for either the receiver mounted up front. If this were a bit shorter, it'd go in between it, but definitely a transponder would fit there. And we've got a whole lot of space on the back of the radio tray now for the receiver, and it is going to be, even with these micro plugs, they're definitely going to be lower than the speed controller. So yeah, quite happy with this. Little confused as why they think fitting the battery in is a good idea, especially with screws being the only way to get it out. But yeah, we just need to get the receiver back stuck down and plugged in. But overall, don't think there's any issues with this. It does fit. The battery can move around a little bit, but you can stick a bit of foam in there. It does look like you've got slightly more room than the stock battery housing. So yeah, may open up options of running bigger batteries, bigger lipos. But overall, it looks really nice. It fits really nice. And to be totally honest, I think most people are just, for how quick these batteries can charge up, I think most people are just running them, plugging it into the charger and running them again. So yeah, overall, still really impressed with it. It looks nice, it fits nice, and quite a bling looking RC now. But let's wrap this one up. So yeah, that is the LMB23126B, and it's the aluminium battery tray, and it definitely makes a lot more easy getting the body shell sat down where it should be. Definitely a big advantage. And of course, if we can lower the centre of gravity, even better. Yeah, it's going to be a bit Marmite about taking the battery out. But ultimately, I think most people are just lifting body shell and charging battery up and setting it down and off it goes again. I'm pretty sure with a little bit of time and thinking, I could make some kind of quick release to lift that up. And the only other thing I'm curious of is we're going to have to get a tiny little bolt for the end of that screw if we're ever going to get rid of that motor gear covering. Because I definitely think in racing, you're probably going to run with that off just to adjust gearing and things like that. But yeah, there you have it. More GPM bling for the little Losi Micro B, or Losi Micro B, depends where you're from. We have yet more bits added to the bag of Losi bits. It's not going to be long before we've got a full Micro B in there. But thanks a lot for watching Wtf Rc Cars. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.